All right, shalom, shalom. I want to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Wakakadash. I want to say double honors and give double honors to the apostles and the bishop elders of Great Millstone for teaching us this word in truth and sincerity and for ruling well. And salutations to my fellow Akim across the four corners of the globe, preaching and prophesying in the name of Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Yeah, I'm my brother Gabar Yahweh from GMS Hawaii, and I'm coming to you with another quick lesson. And this was inspired by I'm watching the Apostles and Bishop Elder Sakaran live street preaching from today, which by the time you brothers see this, it'll be yesterday. But anyway, long story short, what made me think about something was that, they're talking at this point in the video, they're talking about how Nate says that so-called Bishop Nate saying that, these other nations, particularly Esau, Edom, Gog, and Magog are going to, they're going to, mount up a force and fight us in the kingdom of heaven, and that's not so. And that's a cunningly devised fable that this dude just made up. You know what I'm saying? That's not what's written in the scriptures. And then it had me thinking that Esau, he doesn't believe the scriptures, right? Esau, like when you see these people acting like they're us or claiming to be us, claiming to be the Lord's people, these people don't actually believe in Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai the way the scriptures say it is. Okay? They believe that a lot of these stories or the history that is written in the scriptures, they believe it to be a fable. When you hear stories or you read the scriptures and you see David say that the Most High taught his hands to war, how he bent metal on his arm, how he jumped over walls. You read about David's mighty men. In this world, they will be called superheroes. You know what I'm saying? Because they had powers. And because we've been, you know, away from our power so long and we've been in captivity so long, the people forgot about us. They forgot the history. Now, the super elite, they know the history of the true Israelites. They know that these words that are written in the scriptures are true. All right, real quick, this is the book of Second Esdras, chapter 15, verse 1. All right, Second Esdras 15 and 1. Second Esdras 15 and 1. Okay. Hopefully, oh, here we go. Yep, Second Esdras 15 and 1 says, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord." It says, "And cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true." All right, so these words that are written in the Bible, these words of prophecy, the words of our history, because you can't count on another nation to tell our history accurately. And even if Esau does find some carnal stuff, some physical evidence, he's not going to release it to the people, you know, because these people, they look at the world through a carnal lens. They look at the world as it is today. When you think about the ancient world, the first thing you think of is a desert area, because look at what Israel looks at like today. It's a sparse land. It's not flowing. That's not a land flowing in milk and honey or rich in growth, agriculture, land, and beauty and resources. That's not the way that looks today. It looks like it's been torn down, and you got people living on rubble. You have different levels of rubble that these people are living on. As you dig down deep in the ground in Israel, you'll find remnants of the Roman Empire, remnants of the Greek Empire, remnants of the Persian and Medial Empire, remnants of the Syrian Empire, Babylonian and Syrian Empire. Because what they did was they built on heaps and heaps and heaps. Now, certain things they have found, but they're not going to share it with the public. They're not going to give the real Israelites hope. So you can't count on these other nations to tell you the truth. But these words, what you can count on is Yahweh Bashim Yahushai and his word. "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people," Second Esdras 15 and 1 and 2. "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord." It says, "And cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true." And they were written in paper, bounded in this book, so that we, the Israelites of the future, could get these scriptures and we could hold fast unto the things that were written beforehand for our learning, and that we could believe through the word of the Lord's men, right? Because what you're going to find out is the vast majority of the people believe that the Bible is myth. Let me see something. I'm just going to type this in. How many percentage of people believe the Bible is myth, right? They believe that these things that occurred in the scriptures are a myth. So it says Americans' view of the Bible. In 2022, 49%, that's almost half of Americans, view the Bible as inspired by God, but not everything in it to be taken literally. 29% say the Bible is a collection of fables, history, and moral precepts recorded by man. And 20% of Americans say it is actual word of God and to be taken literally. You see? So these people don't even believe in the scriptures as you supposed to believe in the scriptures. What these scriptures are the actual word of the Most High through his prophets, right? And it's the history. And it's the history, the prophecies, as well as the law, statutes, and commandments concerning the Israelites. This book don't belong to the whole world. These people don't believe it. And a great example of that is this guy, David Ben Gurion. Slaki, where's it at? Yep, David Ben Gurion, when they set up the state of Israel, they weren't setting it up because they believed in the spirituality of being the Israelites, and they had a true connection to the ancient Israelites, and that the things that happened or written beforehand was true. They believed that that was a myth. All right. So it says religion finesse. This is from an article or a paper written entitled "Did Israel's Founders Declare a Secular State?" All right. And right here where it says a religion finessed, right? Yeah, it says right here. The question of religion then wasn't resolved by the Declaration of Independence. Rather, it was finessed. And Ben Gurion could finesse it largely because 5 Arab armies were about to invade the country. It says, I'll skip right here. Well, I'll keep reading. But if it would be stretched to say that the Declaration represented a consensus, it would be another stretch to say that it split differences between secular and religious perspectives. Indeed, it is hard to describe the Declaration and the balance as anything other than a secular document, and that was a declaration of independence and governance for that land by those Edomites. All right, and um, it says and a balance of any other thing as anything other than a secular document. It says its peculiar omission emphasizes, especially in the latter stages of drafting, reflect the sensibilities of the secular drafters. Thus, the claim of the Jews to the land is based on history and natural right, not a divine promise, which that land was promised to us by the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, by Shem Yahushai, to our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and then went to our patriarchs, all right, the 12 sons of Israel, whom each tribes are named after. So they don't believe that. They said that the claim of the Jews to the land is based on history and natural right, which these Edomites don't have the natural rights to that land. These Arabs don't have the natural rights to that land. And the history don't suit them as the children of the Lord. It says, thus the claim of the Jews to the land is based on history and natural right, not a divine promise. Similarly, Judaism is conceived as something the Jews invented themselves, you see, and not during a mythic trek in the desert where God appeared to them, but but in the land of Israel. See, so they believe that us walking through the Red Sea, they believe that us walking through the Red Sea, the Lord delivering us out of Egypt, they believe that to be a mythic trek, like it didn't happen. You know, when you type up the word mythic, right? The word mythic, the definition for mythic, I don't know I spelled that wrong, right? The definition for mythic is relating to or resembling a myth, exaggerated or idealized. So when you talk about the children of Israel walking through the Red Sea on dry land. When you talk about David's kingdom, King Solomon's kingdom, these people don't believe that this even existed. They believe that it was a myth because they can't find tangible evidence, physical evidence of it. Remember, our people were taken over and the nations destroyed us time after time again, you know, and they robbed, they ransacked our land, they ransacked our temple. The first temple was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, and it tells you that he carried away the Lord's treasures. That's why his grandson was put to death for drinking, having a drunken orgy party, drinking out of the Lord's vessels, man. And he got hit. And then that the spirit of Yahweh Shai had a hand appear, a finger appear, or a hand writing on a wall saying many, many tekel, which is you have been found weighing in a balance. And then he got put to death, and everybody was scared. Well, let's read that, right? Let's read that account. Because this, again, when you read the scriptures, these people believe that it's a fable. They don't believe that this actually happened. Yep, it's the book of Daniel, chapter 5, verse 25. Okay, the book of Daniel, chapter 5, verse 25. It's the book of Daniel, chapter 5, verse 25. Okay, and it reads, it says, let me I'll read right here, verse 17. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king, and make it known the interpretation. Because, matter of fact, Salakia, because the handwriting on the wall, you got Daniel, I just want to read it. Let's read up here. Verse 5. This is Daniel, verse 1. This is Daniel 5 and 1. And again, I want you to keep in mind, these people, these Edomites, these people that claim to be us, they do not believe these things that are written in the Bible. They don't. Just like 2/3 of our people don't believe that this is true, but it is true. All right? This is Daniel 5 and 1. Belshazzar, the king, made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine before the 1,000. Belshazzar, while he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple, which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes and his wives and his concubines might drink therein. So when you read this, these people believe that this is what? Fables, what it says? Fables, collection of fables, histories, and moral precepts. But they don't believe that this actually happened, but this really happened, you know? And you're not going to have no Bedouin outposts, you know what I'm saying? Because that's what they say that basically King David's kingdom was and King Solomon's kingdom was, which it wasn't. That if you were able to put your physical eyes on that, it will make your heart stop. That's how glorious King Solomon's kingdom was. And even David's kingdom was just as beautiful, even though he was filled with war. You know, he had power, they had control. All right. So it says, then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple. And when they show golden vessels, though, they want to show you a little small cup of something. No, these are huge vessels, man. They weren't small things. Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of the Most High, which was at Jerusalem. And the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines drank in them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and of silver, of brass, of iron, of wood, and stone. So they're drinking out of the Lord's vessels, committing idolatry. You know? In the same hour came forth fingers of a man's hand and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster of the wall of the king's palace. The king saw the part of the hand that wrote. Then the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him. He was scared. He was drunk. He's like, what the fuck? He saw this big hand on the wall. It wasn't like, this was a 1-bedroom apartment. It said he was had thousands of people in there, bro. Over 1,000 people was in it. So that place had to be huge. So he's sitting there. They ain't watching TV in a football game. They ain't have LCD screens back then. It wasn't no HDMI. All right, 1080p. He saw this with his own eyes, man. And the countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loose, and his knees smote one against another. So he was scared. He was so scared his knees start clapping together. You know? And it says the king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about his neck and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom. Right? But he didn't know that he was going to die that night. He over there giving all these promises out. All right? Then came in all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing, nor make known to the king the interpretation thereof. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance was changed in him. And the lords were astonished, astonished, I can't pronounce this word. Astound. Now the queen, by reason of the words of the king and his lords, came into the banquet house, and the queen spake and said, O king, live forever, let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor let thy countenance change. There is a man in the kingdom whom is the spirit of the holy gods, which is the spirit of Yahweh Shah was on him, and it's Daniel. In the days of thy father, light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, was found in him, whom the king Nebuchadnezzar, thy father, the king, I say, thy father made master of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers, right? And why did he do that? Because he was a man of the Lord, but Nebuchadnezzar just bunched him up with all his other men that claimed to be, people that could see spiritual stuff and do spiritual things. It says, for as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpreting of dreams and showing of hard sentences and dissolving of doubts were found in the same Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Right? Now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation. Then was Daniel brought in before the king, and the king spake and said unto Daniel, art thou that Daniel which art the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king my father brought out of Jewry? Right? He says, I have even heard of the spirit of the gods is in thee, and that light and understanding and excellence wisdom is found in thee. And now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known unto me the interpretation thereof. But they could not show the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of thee, that thou canst make interpretations and dissolve doubts. Now, if thou canst read writing, make known to me the interpretation thereof, and thou shalt be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and shalt be the third ruler in the kingdom. Then Daniel answered and said before the king, let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king, and make known him to the interpretations. O thou king, the Most High gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom, and majesty, and glory, and honor. And for thy majesty that he gave him, all people, nations, language trembled and feared before him, whom he would slew, he slew, and whom he would keep alive, whom he would set up, and whom he would put down. But when his heart was lifted up, and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from the kingly throne, and they took the glory from him. Right? He was turned into an animal. Basically, he was turned into an animal. So again, when you're reading these precepts, the apostles and elders always tell us you got to have vision. You got to visualize, conceptualize what you're reading. Like this is not a fable. This is not a novel. This is not something that man just, came up in his head and wrote it down and just start selling it and slinging it over and claiming it to be truth. No, this is real talk. This is a real account of what happened to King Nebuchadnezzar, his grandson, his son or whatever, and the downfall of his kingdom, and that hand that was real. And what it is that Esau likes to cast doubt on the truth. He knows the truth is real because he lies about it, but he wants to cast doubt. See, he can make a movie and they can put CGI and all of this computer generated shit, and they'll have you thinking that this shit is real. But when you talk about the things that Yahweh Shai did for his people in the ancient world and continue to do, these people can't accept that. That's too far from them. You know? That's why the scripture says this in 1 Corinthians 2:14. But the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit of the Most High, for they are foolishness unto him, neither can he know them because they are spiritually discerned. Right. Like even Vocab Malone. He can't understand the mark of the beast because they're spiritually discerned. He's a natural man. He's not a spiritual man. Right? And he's a great example of an Edomite in his mentality. You know? When you look at the so-called Negro, Latino, Native American man, these people on this sign here, you don't see a people that's powerful. You don't physically, spiritually, mentally. You know, only thing they see when it come to us is exploit the ability to exploit your natural God-given gifts. If you can jump high, you can run fast. You know what I'm saying? You can, do something. You can, have crazy sex. They'll use you for all of that. But when it comes to putting a spiritual, what's the word I want to use? Superiority. When it comes to true spiritual superiority and the truth about the Israelites, these people, they can't see that. They don't want to see that. So therefore, they call it a myth. They say that it's mythic. You know, it was made up. It's a fable, right? When you look up the definition for fable, what's the definition for fables? Right? Fables, right? Definition of a fable is a short story, typically of animals, characters conveying moral. It says, let's see, fables, fictitious tale. So when you hear the Israelites are going to have a kingdom with gold on the ground, where you could see yourself in it. We're going to have great walls with precious stones, big pearls with the names of the apostles written on each over each gate, the tribes written. These people, they can't understand it. That's like, to them, it's like, man, that ain't never going to happen. But you can look at Esau's kingdom and you think that this is the way to live, that this is the way it's always been. All of this stuff was formed. It happened, and it is going to happen. But especially when you talk about a nation of people that's been extremely oppressed since day one, the so-called Negro, Latino, Native Americans, the Israelites, no one wants to see them in power. No one wants to see us ruling, and no one wants to imagine us ruling, having preeminence on the earth. So again, when the average people, most people that read the Bible, they don't believe in it. Some say it's inspired by God. Some say, but everything in it to be taken, but not everything in it to be taken literally. So they say it's inspired. 49% say it's inspired by the Lord, but not. It says, but not everything in it is to be taken literally. Then it says that almost another 30% say the Bible is a collection of fables, right? Then they'll say history and moral precepts recorded by man. And 20% of Americans say it is an actual word of God to be taken literally. So very few people in this country believe that these things are literal and that these things really happen. But there's evidence in the earth. A lot of it's being suppressed by the super elite, like this right here, right? It says David and Solomon's biblical kingdom may have existed. After all, a new study suggests monumental structures in Gezer have been redated to the early 10th century BCE, which means maybe Solomon built them after all. Biblical archaeologists say, but colleagues remain skeptical. Remains of the gates of defensive walls and large administrative buildings at Gezer dated to the early 10th century, putting them in a right time frame to have been built by King Solomon, just as the Bible claimed. A radiocarbon study of 33,000-year-old ruins in Gezer, an ancient site in central Israel, was published Wednesday in the journal Plus One, and claims to introduce new evidence in the long-standing debate on how much the Bible is a true story. Particularly, the work relates to the work relates to historicity of the fabled King David and Solomon. See, they don't even believe King David existed or King Solomon existed. But the studies do not purport to prove that the united monarchy of the Israelites described in the Bible was a historical reality. So they try to say that basically these words in the Bible are fake. They try to assume and say that these words aren't real. But it shows that the kingdom's existence and involvement in major construction at Gezer cannot be ruled out, the author says. So these people don't believe, and again, they do not believe, you know? And these are the people that teach your children. These are the people that taught us in the world. These academics, these scholars. And what are they teaching you? They're teaching you to believe a lie. And this is because they don't want Jake to have hope. You know? They don't want you to have any type of historical hope. Like the scripture said, we have brought this out in camp today. All right. The book of Ecclesiasticus, Sirach and the Apocrypha, chapter 2, right? Where it says, right here, verse 10. Look at the generations of old and see, did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded? Or did any abide in his sphere and was forsaken? Or whom did he ever despise that called upon him? So when we read these scriptures, when we look back and read these scriptures, what that does, it builds hope in us in this present time, which back then, this would be called the future, right? So we look back at old and see if anybody that ever called on the Lord was ever despised, or did anybody ever trust in the Lord and was confounded, right? Or did anybody abide in his fear and was forsaken, right? Because when shit get to the head, Esau had you thinking that you're done. You're just forsaken. Ain't nobody gonna come help you. Ain't nobody gonna save you. And you got people of our nation like Diddy. This nigga talking about there's nobody coming back. Nobody's coming. Nobody's gonna crack the sky and come save you. Why? Because you niggas been in captivity so long. All right, Salakia. You've been in captivity so long, you just hopeless. All right, Salakia. All right. So they want you hopeless. Okay. So they'll say things like this. Where's that other article I had? I think that might have been there. Right here. I said, why do scholars think Solomon's kingdom was a myth? It says, but archaeologists had found so few ruins that many doubted the existence of any kingdom here at the time in question. There were no fortified cities, no places, not even anything that could be called a town. The Edom of Solomon's time, many suspected, was another fiction dreamed up by later authors. That's what they believe. This is and this is from the Smithsonian. This is from the Smithsonian, which is a reputable museum, right? These people don't believe. It says, listen to this. Listen to this right here. It says the elusive Edomites, which the Edomites are still here today, right? Dominated the reddish mountains and plateaus. Come on. And plateaus around the mines. The Hebrew and other Semitic languages, their name literally means red. Not much is known about them, but that man is being revealed. And listen, as much as Esau looked into things, you think he couldn't look into the Edomites and see where they appeared in history? Why he don't make movies on Edom? Why they don't write books on Edom? Why they don't go hard on that? Because they know that that's going to expose them. It says that they first appear in a few ancient Egyptian records that characterize them. According to the scholar John Berlet in his authoritative 1989 work, Edom and the Edomites, and bellicose by nature, but also was a tent dweller with cattle and other possessions, able to travel to Egypt when necessity arose. They seem to have been herdsmen, farmers, and raiders. Unfortunately, the Edomites, most of what we do know comes from the text comprised by their rivals, the Israelites, who saw them as a symbol of treachery, which they are. If also as blood relations, the father of the Edomites, the Bible records, was no less than red-headed Esau. He wasn't red-headed, his skin was red. The twin brother of the Hebrew patriarch Jacob, later renamed Israel. With the Egyptian empire out of the picture in 1000 BC and no record of Israelite activity nearby, the most logical candidate for the society that operated the mines of Edom, says Ben Yosef. But archaeologists had found so few ruins that many doubted the existence of any kingdom here in the time in question. There were no fortified cities, no palaces, not even anything that could be called a town. The Edom Solomon's time, many suspect, was another fiction dreamed up by latter authors, and that's a lie. Because when you go to when you look up Petra, right? You look up Petra, you can tell that this was a city that was lived in, and it's the same architecture that the Edomites build in today, right? This is one of the more famous buildings. I don't know if it's a treasury or church. I don't know what they did back then. But we do know that these Edomites lived in a mountainous region. And this is still there. And they can't get rid of this. So what they do, they date it to the Nabateans and say that they built this. But the Arabs never built like this. The Midianites never built like this. They might have dwelt there when they took their place over, but they never built. There's no only people that built like this is Edomites, the Greeks, the Romans built like this. They even had a Colosseum in Petra, right? They had a Colosseum. Look, you can't make this stuff up. This is Petra, right? And they had a Colosseum there. The same way they build in Greece, the same way they built in Rome, the same way they build today in America, right? They build huge ones called stadiums today, right? They still love the mountains. This is where they used to live. This is where they used to operate. Okay? This is how the Edomites get down. But then they'll say in the article that, in this article, they'll say that there was a mythic people, that they weren't real people because they got few evidence, and they got a lot of evidence. They just don't want to show it. They don't want to bring it out, right? So what they do, they reduce the scriptures to moral laws and fables, right? But the Bible is true. Everything written in the scriptures is true. Has happened, will happen, has happened, is happening, and will happen. And when Yahweh Shai comes back, these people are going to know that everything that is written in the Bible is true. Everything. Like the elder apostle Gabar said this.
Yeah, but wait a minute. When is the 1,000 years going to go by? Is the wall going to fall? What about the wall in Revelation 21? There was a wall great high. Yep. And it had gates. And it had gates. And at the end of the gates, angels. And that angels, the names of the 12 tribes of the nation. As a matter of fact, give me that. So God can make our people. They're going to knock the wall down? Yeah. Well, maybe those people that was in that movie, with Russell Crowe, no people made out of rock. Well, the rocks came to life. Yeah, the rocks came to life.
Yeah, like and they show you movies like Noah, would totally botch the true story of Noah, and they show you these rock people help Noah build the ark, and that shouldn't even happen. But that's because Esau's a liar. He's a deceiver. He don't want you to believe in the Lord because he don't believe in the Lord. You know. So I just wanted to bring this out. I'm gonna end it off with Psalms 10:1. I'm sorry, Psalms 10:4. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after the Most High. The Most High is not at all in his thoughts. You see, his ways are always grievous. The judgments are far above out of his sights. As for all his enemies, he puffeth up after them, at them, and that's what Esau does. You know, his ways are always grievous. It says, yet they succeed in everything they do. They do not see punishment awaiting them. They sneer at all their enemies. And that's what Edomites do. Edomites, they're so proud that they don't see that punishment is coming to them for what they've done. They don't think that the Lord is going to get them for all the wickedness and evil that they've perpetrated against the Lord's people, against the Most High's name, against the world. You know? But that's coming. All right? So I just wanted to bring this out. Well, then I want to say shalom and on to the next.